Ladies and gentlemen, long-standing unresolved disputes from Kashmir to Palestine continue to face a serious challenge and pose a serious threat to the regional and international peace and security. The ramifications of the adverse impacts of climate change and climate-induced disasters are not only being felt beyond boundaries, but also across generations. And it's not too long away that we just had a very sad flash floods experience in 2022, and being one of the least emissions country, less than 1% of the global emissions, we are one of the top 10 vulnerable countries. Our failure to address the structural deficiencies in the international financial system is aggravating global inequalities and poverty. Hatred and discriminations are on the rise in the form of xenophobia and Islamophobia. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in this midst of these turbulent times, a region unfortunately is yet again standing on the brink of another conflict. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, baseless allegations as well as unilateral, politically motivated and highly provocative actions taken by India pose a grave threat to regional and international peace and security. There appears to be calculated and premeditated attempt to escalate regional tensions, following a familiar pattern, level accusations against Pakistan without evidence, use inflammatory rhetoric, incite war, hysteria, and use this as a pretext for aggression and unilateral actions. Why I'm saying so? I just want to remind and not go into detail. I'm sure all of you, it's not decades old, it's just 2019. Pulwama, media hype, rhetoric, followed by unilateral deletion of Article 370 and 35A, which led to declaring the 7 decades old disputed territory guaranteed by the UN resolutions to be resolved in the light of principle of self-determination and of the will of Kashmiri people. That was all binned after that entire Pulwama episode. However, this brinkmanship carries consequences that extend far beyond India borders. We believe that what has happened is to divert attention, I'm talking now of Pahalgam, from India's internal challenges, state-sponsored terrorism, the ongoing human rights violations in the Indian illegally occupied Kashmir, and to gain narrow domestic political objectives. Don't forget there are some by-elections coming through next few months in India. However, we are obviously absolutely alert. Regional and international peace and security cannot be sacrificed at the altar of narrow electoral gains. This is a dangerous political game and gamble, putting at stake the lives of millions in the region. Being a responsible member of the international community, Pakistan remains committed to regional peace and stability. We will support all efforts towards de-escalation. I have had interaction in the last few days with more than a couple of dozens, Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Ministers, foreign ministers of other countries. In MOFA, Foreign Office, we had engaged around 45 diplomats and mission heads available in Islamabad, and with few who are members of the UN Security Council, we have probably had more than one rounds. However, in case of any act of aggression, let me first tell you that my interaction revolved around what? In fact, on 22nd of April, we just landed, Prime Minister, myself, on a 36 hours official state visit to Turkey. We were invited by His Excellency the Turkish President. Soon after landing, we had this sad news. And straight away our meeting started, which ended over the dinner. And once I was done, I engaged Foreign Office. It was almost 1 o'clock in the morning, between 22nd and 23rd of April. We decided to issue a condolence message, which is still on our website. On 23rd of April, we issued this statement, and we learned that Prime Minister Modi, after curtailing his visit to Saudi Arabia, would be holding Cabinet Committee on Security of India. At times, a couple of times, changes in the time, the meeting would be held, but finally it held around between Maghrib and Isha, our time. And after the meeting, there was no mention in their official statement, press briefing, any reference to Pakistan, but all the measures they took were Pakistan specific. You only need probably class 1 student to assess what was it all about. So we decided to hold our National Security Committee meeting following morning. And India, by the way, the measures they announced: number 1, closing of Atari border; number 2, reducing the size of our mission in New Delhi; number 3, declaring our armed forces personnel, you know that attaches, naval, air force, army attaches, always there, as persona non grata. 4th, the Pakistani holding valid visas, and inside India, the visas were cancelled and asked to leave immediately Indian territory. And the most shocking, the 5th, was that they announced that they will hold in abeyance the over 6 decades old treaty known as Indus Water Treaty. Now, surely there isn't any provision in the treaty, those who have gone through the treaty. Generally, the international treaties cannot be amended or terminated without the mutual consent of the parties to the treaty. And that's exactly is the spirit of, it's not deemed spirit, it is written in the treaty that neither party solo can terminate or amend this treaty. Now, this is most unexpected from any responsible country in the Comity of Nations. We are low riparian. The established precedents and laws in the world and practically followed is the low riparians always have an access to the water which flows from the upper riparian. We are low riparian. Without going into debate in 1961 what happened, because there are certain critics, and perhaps rightly so. But all those actors who actually signed the treaty and were party to the treaty finalization are no longer in this world, so God, bless their souls. But there was a huge criticism that giving away the right to 3 rivers of Pakistan wasn't a very good deal. The water distribution treaties are generally evolve around how and what distribution would take place. But Pakistan actually agreed to virtually drying up 3 of its rivers and through that treaty. And now, they say that we are going to, by the way, I have tried to search, maybe you are great scholars, some may know, legos. I can't find the word abeyance in international treaties, dictionary. The suspension word is there, but abeyance, I haven't seen that. So it was just shock. So, as I said, that very next morning, we held our National Security Committee meeting, and we decided to still exercise patience. So we threw back the same measures on Indians what they have done to us. We closed Wagah border. We downgraded their mission here as a reciprocity. We declared that armed forces personnel persona non grata. We cancelled the Indians who were given visas and were in Pakistan and also asked them to leave. And we declared in no ambiguous terms that the holding in abeyance is non-starter, because we said it will tantamount to an act of war. We will not allow to divert or stop the flow of water, which is Pakistan's due share under the Indus Water Treaty. And in the National Security Committee meeting, we have made it amply clear that we would exercise restraint and we will not be taking any escalatory move. Almost these over 2 dozens world-renowned, as I said, Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, foreign ministers. Even yesterday I spoke to Russian, I spoke to Malaysian foreign ministers. And they all, including UN Secretary General, the US Secretary Rubio, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, EU Foreign Minister, they all, when I speak to them, they all try to advocate that please, Mr. Foreign Minister, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, whatever they want, they say, please restrain and do not react and do not take any escalating move. I have told each one of them 3 things. Obviously, there's a long calls explaining what India did, what we feel, why they have done it. I just given you an example of Pulwama. I'm not saying this, I don't have evidence, but analysts say this could be another ploy. It might have been self-choreographed. How come in 10 minutes, the FIR is registered at a police station where you need to at least 45 minutes ride to reach? They completed investigation, they completed all the facts finding, they dealt with the on-site, and in 10 minutes the FIR was registered. Come on, nobody's fool. And then what they conveyed, because obviously all these international dignitaries are talking both sides. Few of them, great friends, I have very good relationship, working relationship with them, suggesting me, can you try and help the perpetrators to be caught? I say, hang on, do you know the distance? Where it happened and where is the line of control? They don't know. 230 kilometers. I mean, you can write in 10 minutes FIR, but you can't hold the perpetrators who did all this business and heinous act there. Listen, one thing should be very clear. Pakistan has always and will condemn terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. This is our country policy. This is not now. When we fought against terrorism 2013-17, I was finance minister of Pakistan. I know how many hundreds of billions we had to finance. Even this was the policy decided, declared at that time. And we also declared we will not allow our soil to be used for any terrorist activity against any other country. The state is not involved at all in this sad incident. But, so I keep telling these guys, my colleagues, diplomatic colleagues, that listen, it is as per analysts, some analysts, that they say this could be a ploy. And why? Because India has been now communicating with us officially that this treaty needs to be, a lot of ground realities have changed. This treaty needs to be revisited. And we are responding to the latest communications. Two will be responded. But who can forego a drop of water because the future projections of water is said to be creating maybe wars in future? We can't give up a drop of water, which is our right. We honor, as I said, regardless of the certain criticism which was then, took place and which still people, but we are honoring the treaty in letter and spirit, and we had made it abundantly clear. So some analysts, with hindsight of Pulwama, they translated this recent, year plus negotiations, communication rather, between the two on this subject, that this could be the aim, and they have demonstrated the aim by declaring that we are putting in abeyance. However, as I said, I have told all these friends three things. I said, listen, let me make your life easy. You are asking and appealing both the countries to exercise restraint. You're talking to me, you're talking to the next door neighbor. Let me make your life easy and resolve 50%. I said, we will demonstrate full patience. We will exercise restraint. On behalf of Pakistan, I give him a word, we will not be the first one to do any escalatory move or action. I think we can't do anything beyond. So when I say this thing, it automatically, changes the situation. They understand, and I said, you have to work on the other side, don't worry about us. I've given you a word. This is all minuted in the history and record of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and this is a policy decided in the National Security Committee, chaired by the Prime Minister of the country, Muhammad Shawaz Sharif, attended by the armed forces, chiefs, the chairman, Joint Chief, the Army Chief, the Air Chief, the Vice Admiral of the Navy. So they were all there. So it's a unanimous decision to exercise restraint, and we will not be the first one to make any escalating move. But in case any act of aggression by India, I am making it very clear, including last night, to Russian foreign minister, that in case of any act of aggression by India, there should be no doubt in anyone's mind that let me tell you, Pakistan will resolutely defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity in exercise of the inherent right of self-defense as enshrined in the Article 51 of the UN Charter. So, I have given loud and clear message to the almost major countries of the world that where do we stand and what they can expect from us in case of. Let me also tell you something, that Alhamdulillah, we are absolutely alert. We are absolutely in a position. Our armed forces are, ready. And there has been an attempt. Between the night 29th and 30th of April, we had credible news of some misplay or adventurism by Indian Air Force. Alhamdulillah, we made them to run back and turn back to India. Our Air Force moved swiftly, timely, and made them to run back and turn back to India. According to our information, they landed in hurry at Sri Lanka, at Srinagar. Pakistan also remains concerned at the insightful and Islamophobic narrative being directed against the Kashmiris as well as the Indian Muslims in the backdrop of the current situation. This must end forthwith. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in this backdrop, India's illegal and unilateral decision to hold the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance should be a matter of serious concern to the world community. The treaty provides no basis for such unilateral actions, as he explained. India's actions undermines a fundamental pillar of regional stability with profound implications for the peaceful management of vital shared resources between the neighbors. The National Security Committee of Pakistan, as I said, has made it abundantly clear on 24th of April 2025 that any attempt to stop or divert the flow of water belonging to Pakistan as per the Indus Water Treaty will be considered an act of war. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the international community must take serious note of these developments at a time when the region requires cooperation and restraint. Any tolerance for adventurism would only embolden further instability in this part of the globe. We must not forget that the unresolved Jammu and Kashmir dispute remains the primary source of volatility in South Asia. There is an urgent need for renewed and concerted efforts under United Nations auspices to secure a just, lasting, and peaceful resolution of this dispute in accordance with the relevant UN Security Council resolutions and the aspirations of the Kashmiri people. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the challenges being faced by our region as well as those at the global level can only be addressed through a renewed recourse to multilateralism. There is a need for universal and consistent adherence to the fundamental principles of the UN Charter, self-determination of the peoples, non-use of threat of force, respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states, non-interference in their internal affairs and peaceful settlement of disputes. As I speak, millions of Palestinians are enduring unparalleled suffering. Thousands have lost their lives. Many more have been